before he became known as Tom Cruise's son, before people recognized him as Nicole Kidman's adopted child, before rumors and headlines tried to define his life. Connor Cruise was simply a little boy looking for a family. Today, millions of people know the names Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. Their movies have earned billions of dollars. Their careers have shaped Hollywood for decades. But very few people know the quiet story of the son they raised together. Because while the world expected Connor Cruise to follow in his parents' footsteps, he would eventually choose a life almost no one saw coming. This is not a story about Hollywood scandals, nor is it a story built on internet rumors. It is the story of a young man who grew up inside one of the world's most famous families, then quietly chose a different path. Connor Anthony Kidman Cruise was born on January 17, 1995, in Florida. Soon after his birth, he was adopted by Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, who had married 5 years earlier. At the time, the couple had already become one of Hollywood's brightest stars. Tom Cruise was dominating the box office with blockbuster films. Nicole Kidman was rapidly becoming one of the most respected actresses of her generation. Despite their extraordinary success, they shared a dream that had nothing to do with movie premieres or awards. They wanted to build a family. After adopting their daughter Isabella in 1992, Connor completed that dream. In public, they rarely referred to Connor as their adopted son. He was simply their son. The family appeared together at premieres, sporting events, and public celebrations. To millions of fans, they represented the picture of happiness. Behind the cameras, Tom and Nicole worked hard to give their children a normal upbringing despite their extraordinary fame. Connor spent much of his childhood surrounded by movie sets, family trips, and two parents whose careers often took them around the world. Yet those closest to the family have often described Connor as a quiet child. Easygoing, curious, and far less interested in attention than many people might expect. Even as photographers followed his parents everywhere, Connor rarely appeared to enjoy the spotlight. He was just another little boy, growing up in circumstances unlike anyone else's. For a while, life seemed almost perfect. Tom Cruise was one of the biggest action stars on Earth. Nicole Kidman was winning critical acclaim year after year. Their children were growing up in a loving home that appeared unshakable. From their outside, it looked like a Hollywood fairy tale. But appearances can be deceiving. Behind the magazine covers, behind the red carpets, and behind the smiling family photographs, changes were beginning to unfold. Changes that would reshape Connor's childhood forever. In 2001, one of Hollywood's most admired marriages came to an unexpected end. Connor was only 6 years old. He couldn't have known it then. But the next chapter of his life would be very different from the one the world had imagined. For the first few years of Connor's life, home was wherever his parents were. Whether they were filming in Los Angeles, walking a red carpet in Europe, or spending quiet time together away from the cameras, Connor and his older sister, Isabella, were at the center of their family. To the public, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman seemed to have everything. Successful careers, worldwide fame, and 2 children they deeply loved. But behind closed doors, like many marriages, their relationship was facing challenges the public couldn't see. Then, in February 2001, Hollywood was stunned. Tom Cruise filed for divorce after more than 10 years of marriage. The announcement shocked fans around the world. Until then, the couple had often been described as one of Hollywood's strongest marriages. Suddenly, that image disappeared almost overnight. For adults, a divorce is often filled with legal documents, difficult decisions, and emotional conversations. For a 6-year-old child, It simply means life will never be quite the same again. Connor suddenly found himself growing up in two separate worlds. One with his father, the other with his mother. As the divorce moved forward, the couple released public statements asking for privacy and emphasizing their shared commitment to their children. Unlike many celebrity breakups, both Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman consistently expressed their love for Connor and Isabella in public interviews over the years. But despite those assurances, the family dynamic had changed forever. Following the divorce, Connor and Isabella spent much of their childhood living with Tom Cruise. Nicole has spoken publicly about how deeply she loved both children, while also acknowledging that some parts of their family life remained private. As the years passed, the public became increasingly curious about Connor's life. Every rare family photograph, every public appearance, and every interview sparked new headlines. People wanted answers. Who was Connor closest to? Would he become an actor like his parents? What was life really like inside one of Hollywood's most famous families? But Connor rarely answered those questions himself. Instead, he stayed remarkably quiet. Unlike many celebrity children, he gave almost no interviews. He avoided public attention whenever possible. And as he entered his teenage years, it became clear that he wasn't interested in becoming famous simply because of his last name. The world expected Connor Cruise to grow into another Hollywood star. After all, he had grown up surrounded by movie sets, award ceremonies, and some of the biggest names in entertainment. It seemed like the obvious path. But Connor had something else in mind. Away from the flashing cameras, he was discovering passions that had nothing to do with acting. Passions that would eventually lead him far away from Hollywood, and toward a life very few people expected. As Connor Cruise entered adulthood, many people believed his future had already been writ. He was the son of Tom Cruise, their adopted son of Nicole Kidman. He had grown up surrounded by Hollywood's biggest stars. Surely, acting would be the next step. But Connor had no interest in following the path everyone expected. Instead of auditioning for major films, he quietly began exploring interests that had little to do with the entertainment industry. For a brief period, he did appear in 2 movies. In 2008, he starred alongside Will Smith in 7 Pounds. 4 years later, he appeared in the remake of Red Dawn. The performances introduced him to audiences. But unlike many young actors, Connor didn't continue pursuing Hollywood. There were no major casting announcements, no red carpet campaigns, no attempt to build an acting career. Instead, he quietly walked away, not because he publicly criticized Hollywood, not because of controversy, simply because his interests seemed to lie elsewhere. Around the same time, Connor discovered another passion: music. He began working as a DJ, performing at clubs and private events in cities across the United States and Europe. For a while, it appeared he had found a career that suited him. Unlike acting, DJing allowed Connor to express himself without constantly being compared to his famous parents. The crowds came to hear the music, not to watch another member of the Cruise family. But even music wasn't the whole story. Away from the stage, Connor found something he loved even more: the ocean. Over the years, friends and public social media posts showed a young man who felt completely at home on the water. Deep-sea fishing became more than a hobby. It became a way of life. Connor eventually settled in Clearwater, Florida, a coastal city known for its fishing culture and close-knit boating community. There, he spent countless hours offshore, learning the craft, sharing fishing trips with friends, and enjoying a lifestyle far removed from Hollywood premieres and movie studios. Those who knew him described someone happiest with a fishing rod in hand, not a camera pointed at his face. His social media reflected that choice. Instead of promoting movies or celebrity events, many of his public posts focused on fishing, fresh catches, open water, sunrises at sea, simple moments with friends. It was a striking contrast. Most children raised in Hollywood spend years trying to remain in the spotlight. Connor appeared to be doing the opposite. He wasn't hiding. He was simply living the life he genuinely enjoyed. That decision surprised many people. The son of one of the biggest movie stars in history, choosing quiet mornings on the ocean over flashing cameras. Yet perhaps that was exactly the point. Connor never publicly said he wanted fame. The world simply assumed he did. And assumptions can often become their own kind of story. As the years passed, people stopped asking why Connor wasn't making blockbuster movies. Instead, they began asking a different question. Had he quietly found something more valuable than fame? The answer might not be found in Hollywood at all, but in the peaceful life he built for himself far away from it. By the time Connor Cruise reached his late 20s, something unusual had happened. He had quietly accomplished what many celebrity children struggle to do. He had built a life that belonged to him. Not to Hollywood, not to magazine headlines, and not to the expectations that came with one of the world's most recognizable last names. Today, Connor continues to live primarily in Florida. Far from movie studios, far from red carpets, and far from the constant attention that once surrounded his childhood. His days look very different from what many people imagine. When Connor shares glimpses of his life publicly, they rarely involve celebrities. Instead, they feature fishing boats, ocean sunsets, friends, and the peaceful rhythm of life on the water. Fishing has become much more than a pastime. It is a genuine passion. Publicly shared photos and videos over the years have shown Connor participating in offshore fishing trips, spending long days at sea, and celebrating successful catches. For him, the ocean appears to offer something Hollywood never could: privacy, freedom, and a life measured by personal fulfillment rather than public attention. At times, he has also continued working as a DJ. Although music remains part of his life, it has never seemed driven by a desire for celebrity. Instead, it reflects another personal interest pursued on his own terms. Perhaps that is what makes Connor's story so different. He has never tried to convince the world that he rejected fame. He has simply lived as though fame was never the goal. That choice has earned quiet respect from many people. In an era where social media encourages constant visibility, Connor has chosen something increasingly rare: a private life. Of course, being the son of Tom Cruise means public curiosity never completely disappears. Whenever Connor makes a rare appearance with his father, entertainment news quickly takes notice. The same happens whenever new photographs surface online. Yet Connor himself has remained remarkably consistent. He rarely comments on media attention. He rarely gives interviews. And he has never built a public identity around family headlines. Instead, he allows his actions to speak for him. His life reminds us that not every child born into extraordinary circumstances dreams of extraordinary attention. Some simply want the freedom to choose their own direction. For Connor, that direction happened to lead away from Hollywood and toward a quieter life built around the things he genuinely loves. Looking back, perhaps the biggest surprise isn't that Connor Cruise didn't become a movie star. It's that he seems perfectly content without becoming one. And maybe that is a success story people don't talk about often enough. Because sometimes, the greatest achievement isn't becoming famous. It's having the courage to define success for yourself. As the years passed, Connor became known not for blockbuster films or tabloid headlines, but for something much simpler. A man living life on his own terms. And perhaps that is exactly the life he always wanted. But after growing up in one of Hollywood's most famous families, what does Connor's journey really teach us? The answer may be more inspiring than anyone expected. When most people hear the name Connor Cruise, they immediately think of two things: Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. For most of his life, that was the lens through which the world saw him. Not as Connor, but as the son of two Hollywood icons. And yet, perhaps the most remarkable thing about his story is how determined he has been to create an identity beyond those famous names. From the moment he entered one of Hollywood's most recognizable families, the expectations were enormous. People assumed he would become an actor, a celebrity, a public figure, someone destined to follow the same path as his parents. But life doesn't always follow the script others write for us. Connor's journey reminds us of something surprisingly simple. Being born into fame does not mean you have to spend your life chasing it. For years, the public searched for clues about who Connor Cruise really was. They looked for dramatic stories, family conflicts, hidden meanings behind every public appearance. But sometimes, the truth is far less sensational and far more human. The truth may simply be that Connor found happiness in a different place. Not on movie sets, not on red carpets, not in front of cameras, but on the open water. With friends, with family, and with the freedom to live life according to his own priorities. That doesn't mean his life has been perfect. No one grows up under intense public scrutiny without facing challenges. From childhood onward, Connor lived with a level of attention most people could never imagine. Every family milestone became news. Every appearance sparked discussion. Every choice invited public opinion. Yet despite all of that, he managed to do something many people never achieve. He figured out what mattered to him, and then he built a life around it. In today's world, that is not a small accomplishment. We often measure success through visibility. Followers, headlines, recognition. But Connor's story suggests another definition. Maybe success isn't about being known by millions of strangers. Maybe success is waking up each morning excited about the life you've created. Maybe it's finding peace in your choices and refusing to let other people's expectations decide your future. Over the years, Connor Cruise quietly became an example of something increasingly rare. Someone who had access to fame, yet chose not to make fame the center of his life. Someone who could have spent decades trying to meet the world's expectations, but instead chose to follow his own interests. Whether behind a DJ booth or out on the ocean before sunrise, his story has never really been about walking away from Hollywood. It's about walking toward something else, a life that felt authentic to him. And perhaps that's why his journey continues to resonate with so many people. Because deep down, most of us face the same challenge, not on the scale of Hollywood fame, but in our own lives. The challenge of deciding whether we will live according to other people's expectations or our own. Connor Cruise made his choice, and regardless of how public or private that choice may be, it appears to be one he has embraced wholeheartedly. Today, the little boy who once stood beside two of the biggest stars in the world has become a man living life on his own terms. And maybe that's the most important part of his story. Not that he was raised by celebrities, not that he grew up in the spotlight, but that he proved something many people spend a lifetime trying to learn. You don't have to become what the world expects. You only have to become yourself. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more carefully researched stories about remarkable lives and the people behind the headlines. And now we'd love to hear from you. Do you think Connor Cruz made the right choice by building a life away from Hollywood? Share your thoughts in the comments below.